This video is for all my French horn players who are getting ready for their end-of-year auditions. Remember that recording number 1 is a major scale and a chromatic scale. So that is your concert B flat major scale starting on your F, and a chromatic scale that starts on also your F. Recording number 2 is your prepared piece. Remember, you must perform all measures, and the goal tempo is 120 beats per minute. Make sure you pay attention to the key, accidentals, unusual rhythms, articulations, dynamics, etc. Some of that can be found on page 48 in your book, and if not, just go back through book 1 and you'll find some of that information. There's a couple of notes on the right side of your screen. Remember that this is only for 6th and 7th grade students. 8th graders, you've been given a pass this year. Number 2, scales can be sent separately. I am not really worried about hearing them played exactly back to back. Whatever you send me, I'll grade. If it's split into 2 recordings, if they come on different days, I'm fine with that. I just need to get those in my inbox on the websites before the deadline. And speaking of, the scales are now going to be due by May 10th, and the prepared piece is going to be due by May 24th. I've pushed things back as far as I think I reasonably could to give you guys a little more time to prepare and send an additional recording, a second round of recordings. And I just don't need as much time to record without all the after school rehearsing that would normally be going on. I have more time to grade. So let's move on to your practice session now. All right, let's take a look at some of the screen setup before we move on to the playing. Right here is tracks. That's where we're located. Accompaniment, that's if you've got background parts that will play along with you. There's none, it's just a scale. So I've turned my part all the way up. I turned the metronome down just a little bit for recording purposes. Here's your tempo. You can adjust it faster, slower, or you can type it. So I'll type 80. That's a reset button. It'll go back to the original tempo that was programmed in. You got a tuner right here that you can use. This will toggle that on and off if you want to see those settings right there. Here's your count off. It's by default set to 4 like we do in band class, but you can adjust that greater or smaller. I tried to turn it down to 2 and then realized I didn't have enough time to get the instrument to my face. So larger or more cumbersome instruments, you could actually bump that up, and that would help give you enough time to hit the player record button and get the horn up and be ready. This is to check the setting on your microphone on your computer, your device. This is obviously a play button. This is a record button, and once you've recorded, you can then listen to yourself. You can hear you played back out of the speakers or out of headphones, and it'll show you the red, yellow, and green, everything that you played well or anything that you missed. And when you do record yourself, like you're going to submit a pass off, those are going to show up right here under my takes. And that's where you can decide, ooh, that was bad. I made a 20% on that. I'm going to delete it. Or, hey, I made a 90% on that. That's pretty good. I'm satisfied for today. I'm going to save that one. And so this is the area where you need to save recordings to submit them to me for pass-offs. Over here we have assessment. You can turn that off so you don't see the red, yellow, and green. Average tolerance is good, but you've got to hit it on the mark, and that's why you need to have the metronome clicking when you record yourself. Otherwise, that average tolerance, it's going to think that you played very poorly. Some of the beginner stuff, I ended up turning it down to easy just so that they'd have a better shot at it early on. This is the loop function. I shared a video from my favorite beginner boot camp. She's put out new content since the pandemic, and she teaches you how to use the loop function to practice. So you may want to work just the arpeggio. A lot of students need that help. So you could set it to loop from measure 3 to measure 4. Then you can toggle on or off if you want to count off in between. So it will pause at the end, 4 clicks, and it'll start again. So that's very handy, and then you can clear it, you can move it into another measure, or just clear it and move on to the full song. Display, these are items on the screen. So do I want the measure highlighted? I like that because I'm still getting used to reading on the computer screen. You have beat cursor that hits on the beat every beat. You have flow that moves steadily through the measure, and you have note that's going to hit every single note in the measure. I personally like beat because it's more like following a conductor. You're seeing the beat as you move, but you can also turn that off if it's distracting to you. I do want to point out that for any instrument, when you're looking at scales, when I click on this, it's going to show me my starting pitch. That's B flat, that's B flat. So these in here, these are not concert pitch. So I'll go back to over here. You guys are playing a concert B flat scale, which is AKA your F note and one flat in the key signature. So now I'm going to take it back over here to my tracks. This is what we need in front of us for right now when we're practicing in SmartMusic. And let's give it a shot at playing our major scale in 1 octave at 80 beats per minute. Now beginners, younger players, I hope you remember that your 1 octave scale starts down here on the lower F that travels to this F here in the first space and then back down below the staff. I could not find the setting to drop this down 1 octave. So just know it's going to play higher and you're going to play lower, and that's okay. Okay, let's try it again at 90. And when you record yourself, just play like a half note right there. I don't need to hear a whole note. All right, 90 beats per minute. And don't forget to tongue up and slur down. Tongue up and slur down as you move through these scales. Okay, now my more advanced players who may be working on 2 octaves, let's practice that. Here's 80 beats per minute. Okay, a little faster now, 90 beats per minute. And again, don't forget to tongue all the way up to the top note and then slur, get the tongue out of the way, ah, 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 all the way back down. All right, and then 100 beats per minute, all the way up and down, all the way through it. Okay, let's move on to the chromatic scale and get a little bit of practice here. Now, a couple things on the 1 octaves in SmartMusic, they're in 3/4 time, which I like because it puts you going up and down, and then the last note is on count 1 over here. So interesting choice, but I can understand why they designed it this way, why they wrote the music this way. Also, another thing I want you to pay attention to, on the way up, you're looking at sharps and naturals, and on the way down, flats and naturals. That was done on purpose to expose you to inharmonics. We talk about that. I try to about every month of the year, if I can find a place in the music or on your instrument or working on chromatic, I try to point this out to you because it was something that I didn't notice or wasn't taught when I was your age, and kind of struggled with it when I got older. So I want you to be well versed at seeing that. So like this one right here, I'm circling around, that's a C flat. we'll just think, what's the next note down? Go down to the line. And what would be the next note? 1/2 step below C natural. Well, if I go down to that line, it would be a B natural. That's the enharmonic. So if you have C here, and C here, we go down 1/2 step, that's B natural, and then B flat. So same over here, C, B natural, B flat. It's an enharmonic. All right, with that said, let's try it in 1 octave, chromatic 8th notes. And again, tongue up, slur down. All right, let's try that at 90, a little faster. And I'll tell you, this is going to be a challenge to play this fast. The major scales, I notice my middle schoolers can do that more easily sooner, and the chromatic scale takes longer to develop because it's a little bit of all the fingerings of all the notes. So just keep at it, practice, spend a lot of time on your chromatic scale. Eventually you'll memorize it. Give it another year or so and you'll have it memorized, and then you won't have to look at music or look at the back of the book. All right, 90. All right, and then the faster tempo, 100. And that's just my general advice. I think that this is a good tempo for you to audition for me or for All County. You know, depending on your time constraints. With All County, you may have to go a little faster. With All State, you have to go a certain tempo and within a certain minimum minute requirement. So you have to be mindful of that. But for our audition purposes, I think that this is a good, solid goal for middle school students to reach for. Okay, and then let's move on to 2 octaves for my students who are working on that. Here's the 2 octaves. And I'll tell you, I messed up playing through the clarinet version of this, looking at all those sharps and flats. I usually just play from memory. So if you don't want to look at the screen right now, you want to look at your fingering chart, or if you can do it from memory, you may want to do that instead until you get used to reading the chromatic scale in this manner. So here's 80 beats per minute. Okay. Breathing. I hadn't talked a whole lot about this. You know, when you can go fast enough, maybe breathe when you get to the top and when you get to the bottom. But young players, you need to figure out where you're going to breathe and try and do that the same way every time. So you may choose to breathe every 2 measures, or you may get up to the top note, breathe, and come back down, but don't be gasping for air in random different places. Make sure that it makes sense. Those of you who are going to play scales this long. All right, 90. And one more time at 100 beats per minute. Okay, Now let's move on to the end of your audition piece. So I'm going to set it back a little bit to 110 and then play it up to 120 the second time through. So I don't have much to say about this. I'm just going to let it play through. So those of you who have some limitations at home or you haven't quite been able to figure out some of the parts, you can hear how this goes and hopefully get to a point where you're playing along here in the next week or so. So here's 110 beats per minute. And that last note sounded a little clipped. Make sure you play a good full length half note there at the end. There's some playback that still does not 100% sound like real instruments. We're just not there yet with technology. Okay, here is 120 beats. Okay, I hope that makes it a little more clear for you guys what to be working on this week. And you've got a couple more days to get the major and the chromatic scale in. And then, like I said, you've got until the 24th to get the prepared piece sent in to me. But feel free, like I've been saying, send one every week. Don't wait till the last minute. I know how you middle schoolers are. So good luck to you. See you soon. Miss you. Bye.